the agenda. Brilliant. Okay. So welcome to this evening's online full town council meeting, everyone. It's Tuesday the 13th of April and it's just gone 7 o'clock. Please bear with us if we should have any technical issues. These will be dealt with as they arise. But this is a meeting that's being recorded via Zoom and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel later. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. All attendees have been automatically muted until asked to speak. Normal protocol is to raise your hand either physically or via the virtual hand should you have any questions. Members of the public have their right to speak at the public question time at the beginning. We encourage all participants to be respectful of others' opinions and views and be aware of what you say and the impact on others. Now, we're going to begin this meeting with a minute's silence in respect of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, who sadly passed away last Friday. So I'll time it and we'll come back in 1 minute's time. So we'll have a minute's silence in honour of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So we move to public question time, not to exceed 30 minutes. We obviously have Jude attending. Do we have any other members of the public or anyone? Does Jude wish to speak? No. Okay, thank you. Apologies for absence.
So these have been received from councillors Tolson, Maguire and Height.
Okay, thank you. And Sharon, we've got your message that you need to leave at 7:30 as well. Okay, does any councillor wish to declare any interest of matters related to this agenda? Okay, thank you. Chairman's announcements. I don't have any other specific announcements other than what's on the agenda tonight. So we need to consider the minutes from the meeting held on the 16th of March 2021. Do we have a proposer and a seconder that they're an accurate and true record? Gavin, you're proposing, thank you. Tim seconding. Should we have a show of hands that they are an accurate record? Thank you very much. Chris, we can't see you, but raise your hand if you would like to vote. Item 12.5 then, local government reorganisation, to consider the report from Councillor O'Connor on the Town Council's response to the government consultation of the Somerset local government reorganisation. Tim, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Okay, I'm assuming everyone's read the reports and all of those. So what I was going to do is just go through and give a bit of context around it, and that'll probably help Jude as well as member of the public watching. So first of all, I would strongly recommend that each and every councillor responds to the consultation in their own right from a personal perspective, and also encourage anyone else to review and respond, because the more the better. We get range of opinions. So we had at last meeting, we had a working party that was established of Martin, Neil, Matt and myself, and thanks to all of them, we've met once and we've reviewed the two proposals, Stronger Somerset and One Somerset. So Stronger Somerset, if you get this straight in my mind, is the districts, One Somerset is the county council's bid. So we reviewed them all separately ourselves and done the search, and then we met to discuss our conclusions from the point of view of from the town council.
Sorry, Tim, to interrupt. Sorry, Garfield's trying to get in, Chris says. So, Charlotte, would you mind letting him in? Sorry, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't see him on the list that pops up, so he's not trying yet. Sorry.
Can I just say he's struggling to find the link. I've told him to go to the council website to come in through there. So I think he's struggling to find the link to get in. As I said, I've told him to go to the website to take it off the agenda, off the website. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. We just wait 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's fine.
We need to remain correct, and for continuity, if Sharon's leaving at 7:30, let's
I think he's found the link now. He should be with us shortly.
Can I just say, Matt, whilst we're waiting for Garfield, the reason I've got my camera off is, you know, I have terrible trouble with Zoom, and I think it's probably better if it'll help the bandwidth. I think so.
Thanks, Chris.
That proves I'm on without a video.
All right, no problem. Thanks for letting us know. Tim, do you want to continue? Because I mean, Garfield knows the background. You were just contextualizing it.
Yeah, I'm probably don't want to tell anyone to suck eggs and stuff, but yeah, I'll just fill in the bits as well. Okay, he'll know all this. So we're responding from the viewpoint of the town council and Shepton, so that's important to sort of keep that in the back of your mind. I'll draw out a few more observations then, if any of the working party, Matt and Martin here, that they may want to add something. I'll also read out Nick's email just to give us a bit of context, because he's not going to be here, so he might be here before 8. And so both bids, One Somerset and Stronger Somerset, they both agree on one thing, that 3 tiers of local government do not best serve the people of Somerset and are unsustainable. That's probably the only thing they agree on, but that's the important thing, that current status quo is unsustainable. So along with the working party, I attended 3 webinars, one each from One Somerset and one from Stronger Somerset, and then an interesting one last Wednesday, which included both groups from Sedgemoor District Council and Somerset West and Taunton Council, and also One Somerset, and they both, well, it was a fairly polite meeting. They both spent a lot of time picking holes in each other's bids and proposals, but it was interesting. I probably caused the most fuss because I asked an innocent question of why it had not gone to a referendum, but that got the debate going and got a few more questions. So I think the main thing is on the consultation itself is that we need to respond to the actual questions as they are asked and don't go outside that. So even though looking at the questions, are they well worded? I don't think they are. Do they cover all the right areas? I don't think they do. Then maybe that's something that we need to include in our own personal responses. Otherwise, if you don't respond exactly how the questions come out, they just disregard it, sort of. So it's important we get that. So we had the working party discussion. Our conclusions are contained there. We've all separately come to the conclusion that the Stronger Somerset proposal of 2 unitaries would be the better option for Shepton in the long run. Now, that doesn't mean that we think that that one is the finished article, or more detailed information isn't required around areas such as the co-developing the charters, locality agreements, community networks, which feeds into the relationship with the town council. And that's pretty critical. But we felt that there was sufficient acknowledgement at this stage that the town council would have input into those developments. So we had confidence in that. As far as the One Somerset proposal, it seems at first glance to be the more attractive proposal, with the claims of huge savings up front, but is a big if this bid is based on the same footprint as Somerset County Council, which is already very remote and that came up for quite a lot of discussion. Somerset County Council doesn't have a good track record, and the proposal does not attempt to change the overall structure. So that was a big problem for all of us, because we thought it was a very simplistic response, and it doesn't feel as though it's future-proofed. A lot of the savings up front come from job losses and possibly bills, which is similar to what happened in the neighbouring authority. And they've actually recruited the same head. So for the Somerset bid, One Somerset. I did ask about how many redundancies, because that was an important point for me in both proposals. I haven't had an answer yet, but to me the question would be, what happens to Shape in that bid? Does that survive? Now, on the neighbouring authority, when they went to unitary, they got rid of 90 buildings out of 93 and centralised. So there is a big question on Shape. There's a lot of people who work there, spend their money in the town, so that would put Shepton at a risk for me. I think, you know, that's a consideration. So I know there's no guarantee that the stronger Somerset bid equally would keep Shape as it is. They mentioned Froome and Yeovil quite a lot in the webinars, but Shepton didn't come up in any of the 3 webinars at all. So we can't assume anything, but you know, I think it's more definite that it would be under sort of risk in the One Somerset bid. Now, the other big consideration that I think we came across was the geography of Somerset, and one unitary would be the second largest in the country, and we felt that that sort of size just wouldn't address all the different problems that comes with Somerset that has at the moment. So the recommended range was 300,000 to 600,000, and Somerset's population is 560,000, but will top 600,000 in the next 10 years. So we felt that the stronger Somerset proposal, although they're both smaller initially, had that future-proofed along better geographic lines with the M5 on one side, and the different characteristics of those 2 areas in East and West unitary. Another issue for us was the reduction of councillors. One Somerset wants to reduce down to 100 unitary councillors, and stronger Somerset we're down to about 200 that they said on the last webinar. Now, if you balance that we've got 278 parish and town councils in Somerset, so the question is really, does that reduction give you more or less access to democracy? So that's another area. I think the other thing is stronger Somerset showed more appreciation of the complexities to the issues at hand, about future-proofing, and acknowledge the overcomplications at things like these 2 areas. One was a future devolution bill. So that is possibly going to happen, and that means future boundary changes. And we've got possibly a combined authority coming up with Baines and North Somerset. We felt that the stronger Somerset addressed those sort of possibilities in the future, where we felt less so from the One Somerset. Okay, so on balance, I think as town council, we need to back one of these proposals. We can't really sit on the fence. We think the 2 unitary would serve Shepton Mallet better in the long term. There's not as much savings up front, but we felt that savings shouldn't be the main thing that is gearing and pushing this proposal. You know, it's about serving the community and what serves best. Let's see if I've got anything else. I think that's probably all to me. One final point, I'd probably say whoever wins the bid, we're just going to need to work with them constructively for future of Shepton. There's quite a lot of work that we can still do. I think we can still look at, in the meantime, some of the areas of service that could be devolved down to, because both bids have sort of said that they're willing to do that. So we can start that work anyway in the meantime for any of those discussions. That's probably all from me. I'll just read Nick's reply, because he's taken a different line. I think it's interesting to get the different proposal. So Nick said in his email, I'm not keen on Mendip's two-part or unitary plan, authority plan. I feel that things like social care and other provisions that cover the county will benefit from a one authority plan. And it makes sense to me not to split the county in two, as it just means more managers being employed to deliver services that need a county-wide budget and a standard response. We have seen in the NHS that splitting up areas into small trusts just causes problems and ends up with trusts competing against each other, and that doesn't benefit anyone. The Avon and Somerset experiment was a real failure, and I think the traditional county areas have worked well for centuries. The introduction of districts was a bad move generally, and as we've seen, meant that Shepton ended up being treated like a poor cousin to Wells, Glastonbury, Street and Frome with regards to many things such as car parking planning and tourism. Mendip have often said that they treat all towns as equal, which should not be the case. They are not all equal and have very different demands, with the main thing being that we should listen to the town council. I'm looking forward to the town council having more power to influence what goes on in the town. I know that isn't clear yet in the Somerset option, but sooner we lose the district council layer, the better. Right, so that's Nick's views. I've kind of put together the working group's views and a few of my own sort of from context. I don't know if Matt, Neil or Martin wanted to add anything before we open the floor.
I think it's a very good summary, Tim, so thank you very much, and thank you for all the effort you've put in going to all these webinars and the discussions and things like that, and also to all the previous councillors who've been looking at this over the last couple of years. The only other thing I mentioned that we did discuss as a working party is if we went via the one Somerset route, economically there's real imbalance in Somerset. So if you look at West Somerset, there's massive investment around the Taunton Bridgewater, basically the M5 corridor, and money tends to follow money. And I think my personal view is if we went down the one Somerset route, you would continue to see huge investment in West Somerset, and basically East Somerset would get forgotten, would be the poorer brother. That's my view, and I think the working party agreed with that. That's kind of all I had to say. I think you said everything else, Tim. Martin? No other views? So Tim, thanks for the introduction. On the report that Charlotte sent round, we've got 3 recommendations. So number 1 is for councillors to consider the document and discuss the proposed response, and then to agree that at the meeting to either support the proposal as a response or to propose amendments to a response. So if we go around the table, if any other councillor would like to make any other statement regarding the views of the working party or the situation as it is. Sharon?
I think I don't have anything to add of great significance, except that in my job I work with all 4 of the district councils and Somerset, and I think they all have great strengths and weaknesses, and I just think for me it'll just be really interesting to see what happens. And I think because of that I struggle to make my decision, because I can see good and bad in both. And in terms of the kind of the 2 dividing off, I think they will take some of those issues with them and vice versa, you know, so we'll have to see, won't we, I think.
Garfield?
Tim, thank you for that, and thanks to the working group. Obviously, as district councillors, probably Chris and I have got probably more briefings than even you've been through, Tim, because we've been through a lot. In fact, we had one last night as well. So from PA Consulting, I mean, we've had 2 types of briefings. I've had effectively political briefings as a Lib Dem, but I've also had general briefings for all councillors, all 46 or 8 or 7 or whatever the number is. One thing that I think that is really a problem, and that is that, and you touched on it, Tim, and that is 100 councillors as opposed to 200 councillors. You know, councillors are not there. I mean, if you take something like the town council, we'll never have 16 councillors pulling weight all at once. It's never happened, and it never will. I'd love to think it would, but the fact is that if you've got 100 councillors, you actually to have a very serious democratic deficit, because Chris will, I'm sure Chris will actually confirm that as a district councillor, we do have a workload in terms of dealing with issues with our constituents, and actually beyond our constituents, because the fact is that, you know, I mean, Chris actually chairs the scrutiny committee, which gives him some influence over what actually happens at Mendip, and therefore in a sense can protect Shepton and watch out for things that are coming our way. I'm a portfolio holder for planning policy, but I've also actually, funny enough, been asked to also take on enforcement as well. I would prefer not to be honest. This is quite a lot. But the point is, as well as that, I'm also picking up, constituency business, or sorry, ward business. Some of it actually, for instance, is to do with dumping in near Hillmead, etc. And I've been talking directly to the portfolio holder. But the fact is that, the difficulties we've had in dealing with Somerset County Council in terms of getting them to agree to various things. I mean, for instance, the surfacing of the High Street. I was involved in something we paid about 25 grand for directly out of the extremely small precept that the town council had then, to actually bring in Parsons Brinckerhoff to identify what we could do with the High Street. And 8 years later, it happens. And if we basically want to go down the route of the second worst performing county council in Britain after Northamptonshire is Somerset County Council. If we basically are going to actually follow the one Somerset route, which may well happen for political reasons, to the very simple fact that it's a Conservative administration talking to a Conservative government. It may happen. We may not have any choice. It may just be taken out of our hands. Referendum, as you mentioned, did not happen and will not happen, but actually a survey, or I don't know what they're actually going to call it, can't be called a referendum, is going to be funded by the 4 districts, because we think there is a definite democratic deficit by not asking people what they actually want. And actually, the one thing I will slightly disagree with your assessment on, Tim, slightly, is that this is not actually coming really from the districts or from this need for change. It's coming from government saying it's going to happen. So in other words, everybody has to fall in line with the fact that it's going to happen in some shape or form, and therefore there is no other alternative. Well, that's the reality. We actually deal with reality. But the real thing is 200 representatives as opposed to 100 representatives who will actually have work to do. I would actually also argue that you can also, if you go for 100, you will have retirees. You will have people rich enough to give up their time. You will have no working men and women serving anybody in this county, because they will not be able to serve. First of all, the amount of money they will actually get. Currently, a county councillor, their basic rate is about £11,000 a year. But the fact is that the hike to a one Somerset is going to be fairly minor. And actually, to be honest, what you're really saying is you can either have somebody who's on less, just about minimum wage, who could decide to do that instead of doing something else. But you're going to have a really big gap when I would say that basically, for instance, just looking at Sharon, for instance, I don't think you could serve on that and actually find a way of doing it, because A, there wouldn't be enough money and you'd be expected to be doing daytime meetings all the time, serving your constituents, and actually, in other words, good people would not be able to actually serve in this. And I am very, very, very sure that the compromise of Stronger Somerset, it's not perfect, but it's better than one Somerset. The other thing about Stronger Somerset, and I think it might be some degree of fudge, but what Nick was talking about one county, it isn't one county. North Somerset is not part of this. Baines isn't part of this. The fact is that it's even that the county is even bigger than this proposal if it became one Somerset. It's not one Somerset, it's a bit of Somerset, it's a big chunk of Somerset. So it doesn't even really stand up. Sorry, I'm gonna just finish, because I have obviously lots of thoughts on this. There are howling gaps, absolute howling gaps in what one Somerset are proposing. They're concentrating on certain things. And the upfront saving, PA Consulting last night were pointing out that the upfront savings don't pay off 5 years in. because the real costs aren't actually wages. The real costs are the services that we provide for youth services and social services and all those things. In actual fact, there is not a plan for them to be streamlined. And actually within Stronger Somerset, there are savings downstream. And Tim, you've got it bang on right. It's not about savings. It's about, I mean, frankly, if this town council was about savings, we would have a half-time town clerk, because that's how it was run 10 years ago. We absolutely certainly wouldn't have our current town clerk in post, and none of us would basically be achieving even the slightest thing in this town. And you know, it's not to do with savings, it's to do with service, and the service that we can provide with 200 councillors as opposed to 100 councillors is considerably more. You know, if we think that we as councillors have no real purpose in our society, then we shouldn't be councillors, because you're clearly not working hard enough, because people really do need us. That's my pitch.
Thank you, Garfield. Sorry, I was on mute. Right, thanks very much. Do any other councillors have anything else to say regarding the proposal? Gavin?
I'm almost lost for words for once after that pitch, but I mean, I hate the sort of the doubling up, the tripling up of bureaucracy, and to that end, obviously, one would think about, you know, the single council, but I just think it geographically, the area that it covers is just so vast, and I think, you know, a council needs to have that local knowledge of the area, and I think a single council administered from wherever would not have its finger on the pulse. I mean, I think, you know, ultimately this is a cost-cutting exercise. You never sort of rationalize things and look to spend more. It is a cost-cutting exercise. We are all going to have to tighten our belts. But for me, the two councils, it's the best of a bad job, and I look forward to perhaps voting on that in the next few minutes. So thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. Chris?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I mean, I think Tim's appraisal was pretty good. Just to put it in some context, I think, which Tim didn't, the reason why this review was so-called meant to happen was because of the report called The Future Local Government in Somerset. And the context is our young people do worse. Our economy is worse than the rest of the country by about 20%. We've got poor productivity, poor social adult care, poor social care, poor care for children, and we've got a housing crisis. That's the context why the review was meant to happen. Now, you would expect from One Somerset that there would be a strong leadership of how we're going to tackle those issues. And I think, and I may be wrong, I may not have read it carefully enough, but I'm not sure that the One Somerset proposal actually shows us how we're going to tackle the key issues to take this county forward. And that's a disappointment, because as Garfield has said, if we're all collectively on a council because we want to make a difference to our community, we want to make people's lives better. That's what we're here for. That's what we endeavour to do. We may disagree about how to achieve it, but that's our fundamental goal. I don't believe there's anybody on this council who doesn't talk about improving people's lives. So I'm not sure we want to go down invest in an organisation, One Somerset, which doesn't do that. And just look at our recent history with Somerset County Council, and let's be honest, that's what we're buying into. Look at the absolute shambolic state of affairs that our clerk had to beg an answer for us to spend £100,000 in our own town street, in our own high street. That we're paying £15,000 to keep our library in the centre of town. And the Somerset one bid is very similar to the Wiltshire bid. And look at, I mean, Charlotte will tell you, because she pays the council tax in Chippenham. Basically, what's happening is the devolution has been moved without resource. So effectively, that's what's going to happen in Somerset. So our council tax bills will go up. And I think that's a real concern. I think Sharon's got to go, so bye, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
I'm coming on to the councillor and democratic deficit. I do believe that it's a very serious issue, because I do believe, I think as Garfield has so rightly said, for 13,000 a year, and that was the figure I think that we're talking about, who on earth can afford to give up their job to take on such a role? So effectively what we're looking at is retired people and white collar staff who've got employers who allow time to be taken off. Now, I don't have that luxury, and I don't think many people on the council has that luxury. And so really speaking, what are people thinking about? I mean, the whole nature of representative democracy is that people represent their communities, people on low pay, people who don't have great employers, people who don't have great opportunities in life, but actually want to make sure other people have those opportunities. And I come back to that point. Let's reorganize local government to make improvements. Now, you know, Stronger Somerset, I'm not overly certain. I mean, I think this whole exercise is a busted flush. I think if you're going to reorganize on the county of Somerset, then you're going to you limit your resources. And this is the problem. The Conservative government said we only want to consider the existing county boundaries of Somerset. I mean, people in Burnham-on-Sea, I'm sure, would sooner be in a unitary with North Somerset, and I'm sure we'd sooner be in a unitary with Baines. And I'm sure the rest of the county will be quite happy in a smaller unitary authority for the county. But the government said we can't have that option. The government's basically saying you can have one council or two. And I do think the two is the better option, because I do think it is more representative. And also, I mean, I can't overly buy into this enabling role, because I think councils should be doing things. That's what I think councils should be doing. But it has a far clearer view of where it wants to take our community than the one Shepton bid does. And so I think, on balance, that's the way that I shall be, you know, hoping that we can go. But it's not. But I do think I'm very critical of how this whole process has been done. For me, it's just a Conservative stitch up, and that's my piece. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any other comments from any other councillor before we move to a vote? If there'll be no further comments, so recommendation 4.
Forgive me, sorry, I don't want to jump in again, but just one other thing I was going to say, and that is that I think that one thing that was mentioned in the paperwork is something to do with what we might or might not take on, because I think that's part of this as well, because there will be things as has been said already, that the history of elsewhere, and I think this applies to Cornwall, it also applies to Wiltshire, is that the money didn't follow the responsibility. In other words, we took up I mean, you probably are aware that Froome and Mel Usher has been working quite hard on sort of working on pro One Somerset. But what they're really trying to do, I'm not being cynical, but I think it's actually fairly accurate what I'm about to say. I think what they're really trying to do is grab as much as they can for Froome, because there is an element of the independent state of Froome, and we certainly, Chris will back me up in this in terms of being on the district council. You know, Froome Council, in some ways, is kind of constantly at loggerheads with Mendip, because basically it wants to control everything. Now, actually, that's fine, but the only thing about it is that you see, there's a really big problem with this, that if you do have a strong town council, you've also got lots of parishes that may not have that strength to actually act properly. And actually, our responsibility isn't, and I think that one of the things that Gavin did, which I and with your help, Matt, and my help, and others, and Charlotte backing, you know, the business awards, we didn't draw a line round our own border in Shepton. We reached out to the villages beyond, and I think that actually, in many ways, in a sense, our responsibilities go beyond, in a sense, our own patch. They actually go beyond to the people who shop in our town, that actually use it and come to our markets, etc. And it's a wider responsibility. But I do absolutely think that the problem that we have is we need to work out what just rather like Collet, we took on Collet Park from the Borough Council because it was not being well looked at, and it's costly for us. But basically, it's the jewel in our crown. We keep on saying that. But the other thing is that we also need to work out what else we might want to take on. And it could well be that West Shepton playing fields might be what we might want to take on, but we might want to take it on before One Somerset or Stronger Somerset comes into play, because I think there's a sympathy for wanting to make sure that local people have control over assets, which are very important like that. But on the other hand, we also need to consider that if we do take it on, will we get the support, financial support, to be able to manage it at the same level? On the other hand, it's not being terribly well managed now. So, you know, I think things like that are quite important. We have to work out what it is we want to get hold of in this kind of period. And I'd be interested to know what Chris thinks about that as well. Just before we actually do go to a vote, because I think it's quite important to work out what do we want to take and what risk do we want to take by taking it? Because if we, this will be a one-off chance to perhaps not see these kind of things. I mean, what it really means is, instead of us actually wanting to say there's a problem in West Shepton playing fields, we'll be talking, if it's One Somerset, we'll be talking to somebody in Taunton who won't get back to us for 3.5 months.
Okay, can we just find out what Chris's response is to that? Because you asked that of Chris, and then we'll go to Tim.
Sorry to be talky. Apologies.
Yeah, I think that's one asset that I think it is. I mean, everybody knows on this council, well, I hope everyone knows on this council, I'm a great believer of multi-parks within the town. And I think that certainly, Matt, you, for example, got the skateboard park there with your colleagues. And I'm a great believer in that. There's a great opportunity for that to become a sports adventure area, which we can, with our new grants officer, can actually try to get money for, because I think that's a huge. We get the cycle track which joins the east-west of the town there, and then that becomes a real hub. But I also think, when we talk about, we've got our contract to look at, our ground care contract to look at in 18 months' time. And I think we should be looking at certain things, how we're going to procure that. But if we do that, then, things about high street cleanliness, and I think we should be looking at that sort of thing, because essentially, the civic pride stuff, that's the stuff we should be looking to take on. It's our responsibility. Shepton Mallet is our town, and I just think if we have One Somerset, and as you say, in Taunton, because let's be honest, Taunton, Bridgewater, Yeovil, that's all they worry about anyway. So we need to be concentrating on what makes this town special, and those are the things that we should be absolutely saying we want to take responsibility for, and actually try to get some funding to take these things on, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which unitary we've gone through, that the core services will be worse than they are now, because essentially the government hasn't stopped the austerity program. They're going to have less money from the central government, and we need to take responsibility. Sorry, Matt, I've been focusing on a bit long.
No, that's fine. That's good. No, that's fine. Chris, thank you. Tim?
It's just linking into those Garfield and Chris's points, where I was saying I think the work still needs to be done now. We had those conversations. I think the One Somerset was a bit clearer on what services they would devolve down, and that's maybe a good starting point. But I think the Stronger Somerset were open as well to what services could be devolved down as well. So I think we could do some work, look at other councils, how Cornwall got on, what problems they hit when they took on certain, services. Same with Wiltshire. I think that's something we can have. So when we're ready and we know the figures that we want when we go into negotiation, and we know which ones may look attractive at first instance, but actually when we do the numbers, it may not work for us. So it's just having that conversation between us all, sort of over the next sort of, however long it takes, sort of. But yeah, if the playfield West the Shepton one that you mentioned comes up before then, that may be an option to go for it earlier.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, can I just say about the stronger Somerset something which hasn't been said, and that's the reason why, because I don't obviously want to keep talking. But a part of their bit about the localism, about the devolution of services and the like, actually in the stronger Somerset, they are actually planning for that by actually including that in their core business strategy. I don't think that's been said. So I mean, although the county council one Somerset have given a list of the the assets and the liabilities, the stronger Somerset is looking at that as a core piece of work, and that will be staffed. So I just want to say that as to make sure that everyone appreciates that, really.
Thanks, Chris. And Garfield?
Yeah, tiny point. That we have been talking to Tracy Aarons about the possibility as deputy in Mendip, about the possibility of of pulling West Shepton playing fields into our kind of orbit, and it is being received with a degree of sympathy. And let's face it, we have the power to do that at the moment because of the present administration. I mean, forget which party it is, but it's the party that we belong to. So we've got very strong links between the town council and being able to do that, if that makes sense. And I think that, I mean, in broad brush strokes, I think that in terms of how we play this, I mean, we've got, the Lib Dems and future Shepton, I think, see very much eye to eye on a lot of these things. And I think that in that sense, we have the, the ability to pull this off at Mendip at the moment. And as Chris has said, he belongs to no party, and he also is in train, basically. So it's not a party political thing. It's to do with being progressive, actually, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Right, so I propose we move to a vote in a moment. Just conscious some councillors haven't had a say. So do raise your hand if you wish to. If not, then we will move to a vote. Okay, so the recommendation in the report is to either support the proposal as a response or to propose amendments to a response. So do we have somebody who wants to propose the proposal as it stands, as the working party wrote it?
Could you read it out for us, please?
So I need to actually get the...
Just so we know what we're all voting for.
Do you want me to help?
So it's basically the summary. Charlotte, correct me if I'm wrong, in section 1.2, because section 1.1 of the report is a summary of how the working party worked. They are recommending, so Shepton Mallet Town Council would recommend the responses to prefer the structure for the future administration of Somerset of the stronger Somerset proposal based on the creation of 2 new councils. And then we go into the following reasons. So likely to improve both local government and service delivery across the new areas of East and West unitaries. We agree that a reorganisation of local government is long overdue, but we think this opportunity represents a clear opportunity to deal with some of the structural deficiencies of the current 3 tiers of local government. And after reviewing both proposals, we do not believe that the One Somerset proposal represents a realistic approach to resolving those issues. Its simplistic approach that big is better simply does not demonstrate an appreciation of the complexities of service delivery in Somerset. And then the risk of service delivery failure in this proposal, especially for towns as Shepton Mallet, already remote from Taunton, is much higher in this proposal than the stronger Somerset proposal. We believe the 2 unitaries proposal will better serve Shepton Mallet. That's an abridged summary of what is in the report that we are voting on. So
Can I just clarify then? I've got to go into a portal where I'll have 2 separate surveys that ask me exactly the same questions, and I've got to obviously answer them in such a way that there's a favourite from this. So as Councillor Harrison has summed up, I would be answering the questions that are at Appendix A in this report. There's 5 questions that I haven't put in the report because they're my name and email address and that, but it starts from question 6, although it says question 1 in here, and have a look at that. So I need to know that I'm answering these words. I mean, I might just edit because I might use a different word, but it's along the lines of what was submitted to you in this report.
Gavin?
I would be happy to propose what's been laid before us.
And do we have a seconder? I mean, I will second it. I will second that. Okay, should we take a vote then? Thank you. Chris, do you want to show your hand? Either raise it if you're in agreement. Okay, so we'll take that as an agreement. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then just briefly, to delegate authority to the town clerk to make the response to the public consultation as agreed in the meeting. So I propose that Charlotte does that on our behalf before the 19th of April.
Happy to second it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Should we have a show of hands? Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes that part of the agenda. Moving on to section 12.6 to transfer temporary responsibility to the town clerk. So following the resignation of the RFO, to formally transfer the responsibility to the town clerk on a temporary basis whilst a replacement is sought. So
Propose.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Tim, I think you had your hand up first. Thank you. Should we have a show of hands for that? Thank you very much. And then date and time of next meeting, which would normally be a really simple thing to go through, but it's a bit of a nightmare. So just as a bit of background, everybody, the legislation that allows our level of government to meet virtually runs out at midnight on the 6th of May, which means we have to physically meet from the 7th of May onwards. But obviously our usual meetings place, the chamber at Space, is currently used as a vaccination centre. So Charlotte and I had a conversation about this yesterday. Charlotte, I suggested we perhaps contact Whitstone to see if we can use their school hall. It's a COVID safe space that might be available in the evening. Neil?
We tried, but it's hard. It's Easter holidays and we didn't get an answer.
Right. Neil, did you want to say anything?
Well, dependent on the date, there is our hall, Methodist Church.
Thank you. We actually thought of you, Neil. We know for sure the school has obviously got really rigorous COVID sort of regulation approval stuff. So that's why we were going to contact them initially. But thanks for if you're a plan B, if that's okay. That's okay. Now, the proposal on the agenda today is to move the annual town council meeting to be brought forward to the 4th of May. So we make sure that that is done before we potentially can't meet for a little while. Charlotte, that's correct, isn't it? Yeah. You're on mute, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm stuck between three pieces of legislation. So I've got one piece that says we must have an annual meeting in the month of May. I've got a second piece that says we can no longer meet virtually. And I've got a third piece called COVID that says if we do physically meet, risk assess, 2.5 meters apart, masks on, no touching pens, no door handles, that sort of thing. So if after the other thing to say is there is a High Court, what the name is, 3 or 4 organisations have gone to the High Court to ask that this virtual, being able to meet virtually is overturned so that it allows us to meet virtually. They don't meet, or the court hearing isn't until very end of April. And I doubt we'd get a response within 24 hours anyway. So going forward, we might be able to meet virtually, but not on that particular, there's this, we're stuck in the void at the moment, and I'm trying to find a solution for all. We can have we can on paper have an annual meeting on the 4th of May, but you can choose to defer some of your functions at that meeting to a later meeting. That way you've ticked off to say you have met in the month of May as per one piece of legislation. COVID secure and all of that means I go off with the tape measure, check square meterage or something like that, and work out how many people can be at capacity in that building. What I'm not allowed to do is exclude the public. So if a meeting was only, say, suitable for 16 people, that would be unacceptable to us because we've got 16 councillors plus me plus the public. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place at the moment until we know what size building we might be able to have.
Okay.
So
Chris, do you have something to say?
Yeah. Yes, Chair. Thanks. This is a bit of a perfect storm for our council, isn't it? Because essentially, most councils have got a full complement of councillors, and it wouldn't make a jot of difference whether you brought it to the 4th of May or whatever. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. We've got a third of the council going to be elected after the date of the proposed annual meeting, and I think that is potentially problematic. because I mean, essentially, you know, lots of the stuff, you know, election of committees and stuff, well, you know, you just can't, you know, you just physically can't do it because a third of the council isn't elected. So I do think, I mean, I'm not helping the situation, but I would be much more comfortable if we could hold the meeting when we have a full complement of councillors after the election, I have to say.
So yeah, so actually, since Charlotte forwarded this agenda, we had a conversation yesterday, and I thoroughly agree. I think it would simply be unfair to try and negotiate the committee structures, and then, you know, before the councillors have even had a chance to get on the council. I just don't think it would be very democratic. So that's why I propose that we try and find a venue such as Whitstone School, which, as I say, is COVID safe and I know is free in the evenings. So may I propose that perhaps we wait until we make a decision to see if we can find a suitable venue, because I think it is best if we can meet in person as a full council with all the new councillors, share the workload, welcome them on board, and if we need to live stream it to include the public, maybe that's a solution. But I'm just picturing Whitstone School Hall is pretty big. It's pretty big, and it'd be very disappointing if they couldn't support us in this, because we have been supporting them as well. So that's my proposal. Maybe we wait a week until they're back and we work with them and see if we can set up a meeting at that venue. Do I have any other sort of support from councillors on that proposal?
I think that's very sensible. Yeah.
Thank you. So okay, should we take a quick show of hands then that we do that? We wait. We contact Whitstone, see if they. Martin, go ahead.
I seem to remember when we didn't have the chamber, we did use Whitstone, and Whitstone threw us out because what we were doing was hard work for them. So I think it just needs approaching a bit tenderly, as it were. I'm not sure what the issue was there, but there were problems, and so I would just approach that one in a tender manner.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you. I mean, there is a new head now, and yeah, okay. We'll thanks for that bit of background, but let's broach the subject with them when they're back.
Well, I also throw in, as nobody else has done, that when we had that period of time, we also used the ballroom at Kilver Court.
Right.
Over that period, but that may not be COVID compliant, but it is a space.
Yeah.
And it worked well then, but I'm not saying it's going to work now with the needs for COVID compliance.
Thank you.
At the risk of having to declare an interest, I mean, they have got an awful lot of warehouse sales at the moment. So, I mean, whether it'll fit in with that timetable, I don't know. But just let you know, there's like the next month got sales on.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, well, we'll leave it to Charlotte to see, and I'll work with her as well and see what we can do. But personally, I definitely would prefer to meet physically and with all the new councillors on board. I think that's the fairest thing. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's everything for this meeting, and have a good evening, everybody. All right.
Thanks, Matt.
And once again, sorry, thanks to Tim and everybody who's been involved with the main report. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you very much. Nice to see you all. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.